Today we're talking expensive Sonic games. Let's see how we get on. Hi, welcome to the show. Today I'm going to be talking about expensive Sonic games. Now, I'm not going to be talking about the most expensive Sonic games that you can buy, but I'm going to talk about some games that will probably be a little bit more familiar with some people, and it might just help to give a little bit of context to where this video has come from. I received a really nice email from someone that had seen one of my videos and had also seen me on Facebook groups, knew I was a big Sonic fan and always collecting Sonic games, and they asked me, I want to get into collecting. I've always liked my Sonic. I want to sort of get into what you're doing, and I'm interested in trying to pick up some of the more obscure ones first. And I kind of just said to this guy, that's great. If you're going to knock off the big ones, you might as well start now because some of them are getting really expensive. And it just gave me an idea to say, well, all of the Sonic videos I've done so far have been about the games specifically. And while playing the games and enjoying them and discussing them and talking about the stories and all the different types of Sonic games out there is the most important thing to me, I am obviously a huge collector and have an awful lot of Sonic games. So I thought, might as well start doing some videos on the wall of Sonic and start showing some people some of the more kind of gems, if you like, or treats that might be in the Sonic collection. Now, I'm nowhere near finishing a Sonic collection. I'm getting very close to my personal goals, but I'm doing very well and I'm really enjoying it. And at the end of the day, it feels good that people are approaching me to ask for any advice and to just chat generally about Sonic and collecting it. It is a bit niche. I mean, obviously just a huge Sega fan in general, but Sonic's my thing. So I thought I might as well make a start, and I thought, why not just hit it straight from the top and start looking at some of the bigger, more expensive games that can be in a Sonic collection in today's retro collecting world. I never kind of set out to do videos about, this game's expensive, look what I got, blah blah blah, because I don't really think that's useful. I'm more into the, what do the games mean, who made them, where they come from, when were they released, and things along those lines, more than I'm involved with how much does some packaging cost. But that is just as important, because part of curating a collection is about the prosperity of all the different variants that were released, and it just happens that some of those are getting expensive, and that's what it means to be a collector in the modern retro scene. So that's a little bit of a backstory to where this video came from. I'm going to just start cracking on now with some of the games. Now, the actual games themselves, they're not particularly going to be any that are, oh my god, I've never seen that game before. They're games you've probably heard of, maybe only one that people might not be as familiar with when we get to that one. But most of the games, people will know what they are, they'll know where they come from, and they've probably played them themselves, but just probably in a cheaper way, like on one of, Sega classically loved to release lots and lots of things on their PS2 and PS3 and Xbox collections and all that. So these games are readily available. What we're actually looking at is the specific editions that I have here from different parts of the world, and just having a little chat about why these are a little bit more expensive to collect than some of their counterparts. So we start off with a game that will be familiar with anybody that even has a slight interest in Sonic or retro gaming in general, and that is Sonic and Knuckles. Now, everyone's going to be thinking, but Faith, how on earth can Sonic and Knuckles be an expensive game? It's one of Sega's biggest selling games. It was one of the giant games of the Mega Drive era or the 16-bit era, and how can it be that this game makes the list of expensive Sonic games? Well, no, it isn't one of the most expensive Sonic games you can buy, but this particular edition from Japan happens to be very expensive. Well, not very expensive, but I suppose it depends what you mean by very, but it is an expensive version of it. Now, to buy this game in the UK or the US, it's going to be between £20 and £30. If you can find a really, really nice copy, it probably will go for a bit more. Sonic and Knuckles is notorious, or Sonic and Knuckles on the Mega Drive is notorious for having a flimsy box that doesn't really hold up well, and most people that have a copy of this game will probably have some sort of issues with the box. To find one that's in incredibly good condition is very rare these days, and if you do get one that looks like it's brand new, it will go for an awful lot of money, and that's what happens with this one from Japan. Now, the reason why the one from Japan is particularly expensive is because the Mega Drive in Japan wasn't quite as popular as your SNES or your PC Engine or some of the other consoles and the NES, etc. So while the Mega Drive was incredibly popular in the USA and Europe, it didn't quite hit the same sort of level of success as it did in Japan. That's not to say that the Mega Drive wasn't a success. It just didn't see the same sort of number of sales. And then as you get towards the end of the Mega Drive's life cycle, some of the games that were released in Japan for the Mega Drive never got a reprint, or they were released in smaller numbers. And before you know it, a lot of these games become expensive. Now, I had a little check on eBay before I did this video to get some idea about the price that these games are up to, and I saw that a few had sold for about £40, but that was a bit of a red herring, because when I actually dived into those sales, they were incredibly poor condition. And as I continued scrolling through, to find one in half decent nick with all the paperwork, the manual and everything, and the cartridge in nice condition, they were going upwards of about sort of £65–70, which is an awful lot of money to pay for a Sonic and Knuckles game that you would just assume would be, a game that you can pick up anywhere, not quite shelf filler material, but along those lines. But no, to get a half decent copy of Sonic and Knuckles in Japan, you are looking at about £70. Now, this game is special for loads of reasons. Some of the more interesting facts: it was the last Sonic game created by the Sega Technical Institute in America. It's the direct sequel to Sonic 3, although technically it's part 2, and there's some great videos about that, and there's lots of history to this game. But the magical thing about this is, where Sega were forced to split this game into two and make Sonic 3 into two parts, they had to create the lock-on technology, and it just opened up this whole world, and Sega just really went to town. I think this game is special because of that. The fact that you can play all of those blue sphere levels from Sonic 1, you can have Knuckles in Sonic 2 and in Sonic 3, and combining the two has that massive epic story mode. And then the fact that whatever cart you put into it, 99% of all Mega Drive and Genesis carts will produce a blue sphere bonus stage. So very special game, getting a bit expensive. So anyone that is a Japanese collector of Mega Drive games and hasn't got this, you want to start getting this on your list of, almost big hitters. So that's Sonic and Knuckles Japanese version. We're going to move on now to a European release, to a game that is actually not a very good game at all. Hopefully the others stand up. No, that's not going to stand up. And that is Sonic Spinball on the Master System. Oh, it's horrible. I remember getting this back in the day, and having already played the Mega Drive version that had come out 2 years previously, or about a year and a half previously, and I quite like that. I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, but I thought it was a nice little spin on the Sonic gameplay, and I thought it was an okay game. I thought it was very playable. It wasn't an amazing Mega Drive game, but it was good. It was a good game, and it was also a good way of bridging the gap between Sonic 2 and Sonic 3, where Sonic 2 had come out in November '92. We wasn't going to be getting the first part of Sonic 3 until February '94, and it was a good stopgap because it came out about halfway through '93. I think it was about October '93, the original Spinball game. But we're getting off track. So they decided to release a cut down version, is really the only way I can describe it, for the Master System. It has very similar levels, but it's really clunky. The controls are just awful in this game. The only saving grace for it is that it did really push the Master System's graphic capabilities to the max. This game's probably worth just playing just to see the way they were just squeezing every little part of the Master System's abilities into the games towards the end of its life cycle, and it is quite impressive. The music lets it down, and the sound effects are a bit awful on this as well. This was just a bit of a rush job. It doesn't really do anything, and it's a real disappointment because I really wanted this to do well on the Master System, but it just wasn't. And again, because it wasn't very good and it didn't sell very well, it didn't get a second reprint. So this is a fairly rare game, and anyone that is going for a full Master System set will tell you that this is one of those games that when it comes up, you just got to grab it. You just got to grab it because it's getting expensive. I used eBay and had a really quick look, and this selling in decent condition with the manual was selling for about £90 roughly. You probably could get it cheaper if you shopped around, but I'm just looking at the average price. This one has shot up a lot the last couple of years, and then it's getting really pricey. So again, any Master System collectors, if you haven't got this one yet, probably recommend getting it on your list. And it's worth having a go just to see how good the Master System's graphics can be, even if the actual game itself isn't very good. So that's Sonic Spinball on the Master System. Didn't want to spend too much time on that one because it's a terrible game. Now we move over to America. So we've gone from Japan, we've gone over to Europe. We're now going into back all the way over to America, and we have one of my favourite Saturn releases is Sonic Jam. Now again, people at home, especially in the UK, will be going, "Faith, you must be crazy! Like, there's no way Sonic Jam can be an expensive game." If you were to buy this in the European market, especially in the UK, it will probably, the European version probably costs about £15 to £20. Yeah, probably about £20 for a really good condition one. And in Japan, similarly, this game will probably be less than £30. If you shop around, you probably could get it for about 20, really. But for some strange reason, it's a really expensive one in America, and it doesn't really seem to make sense because it sold well in America as well. But it's just the state of retro gaming at the moment is that things are just getting expensive. Now, what makes this game special is it brings together all of the four originals, what I would call the Death Egg saga, if you like, for the Mega Drive games. So it's got all the classics on there. It also does something special, which you'll see in the game footage coming up, that you can set Sonic 1 if you play it on this to have the spin dash, which obviously wasn't in the original Mega Drive game. So this is a special game. What really makes this game great though is the Sonic world, because it gave us a glimpse of what a 3D Sonic game on the Sega Saturn might look like. And when this came out in when did it came out? 97. It gave us a little glimpse of what it might look like playing Sonic in 3D. But interesting fact, Sega fans, it wasn't actually the first time we'd seen a 3D Sonic. Any fans of another one of my favourite games, Nights, and played the Christmas Nights demo, will be fully aware that you could play a Sonic in that. So that was the first time we'd ever saw a true 3D Sonic in a computer game. This game with the Sonic world gave us just another glimpse of what it might have been like. If you are interested to hear more about the Sonic world, little plug for my own video. I did quite a good video on Sonic World and all the different features on it. But this game in America, if you buy this in America, complete and everything, it's going to set you back about £100. Yes, £100 for Sonic Jam. The state of the market at the moment is getting really silly, and it's not even like it's particularly rare. I searched this on eBay and lots and lots of different copies come out. I think it's getting a bit like we have in Europe with things like Streets of Rage 3, where people just have it in their mind that it's a rare game, when actually it's like a really common game on the Mega Drive, but for some reason it sells for 80, 90, £100. But there's so many out there to buy. Very strange. But again, any US Saturn fans, they want to start picking some of these games up. So that's Sonic Jam. I love it. I love these big boxes. I love these. They're just really different, and they look great on the shelf because they're so big and bold. And I'm not a big fan of the American artwork, but this one I actually really like because it's got Sonic, Knuckles, and Tails, and I just think that's awesome. Moving swiftly on, we're now starting to get into some bigger money now. So we're up to the £100 mark now, and those three we've just seen, they're not even like expensive in terms of terms of Sonic games. They just happen to be slightly expensive games. Anyone that collects retro games and is going for like really nice condition and all the manuals and all that sort of stuff, they'll know just how expensive games can get, especially if you're going for a full set of something. So we're getting on to some of the games now that are really going to be, they're quite tough to find, first of all, and secondly, they will set you back a pretty penny. And if you're not prepared to sort of just go and grab it and pay what it comes up for, you don't know when your next opportunity is going to come up. This next game, it actually took me years to find one that was complete and copy, and it's a game called G-Sonic on the Game Gear. Now, some people might be thinking, oh, I've never even heard of that game. Well, you might have done actually, because there's a game called Sonic Blast on the Sega Game Gear, which again is a very expensive one to buy in Europe, even more expensive than this one, and it was released in America as well. And it's an interesting game because it's the only Sonic game that came out or was designed for the Game Gear to take advantage of its extended color palette, but then was reverse engineered, if that's the right phrase, back onto the Master System when it was released in Brazil on the Sega Tectoy. Now, most of the time for Sonic games that were going to be released on both Game Gear and Master System, they were developed on the Master System, and then if they could add any graphics in or any extra colours into the Game Gear version, they would try to do so. But this is the first example of the opposite happening, where it was designed for a Game Gear, take advantage of the extra colours and the extra sort of abilities of that machine, but then turn back into a Master System game. So I've played this game quite a lot. Is it any good? Not really, no. It's a strange one. It's notable because it's really the only way you're going to get to play Knuckles on a Game Gear. There's not really any other way, unless you're going to count like Sonic Drift Racing, which makes it okay. But it used this really strange, almost trying to do this 3D effect on the character models, and it's got a really strange art style, which I just don't really think makes it look much like a Sonic game. And I was a bit disappointed with this when I was playing it. But it's not a bad game. Like, you can sit and play it, but because they're trying to push so much out of the poor little Game Gear, the levels are really bland and really, really small. Like, some of the levels you can complete in about 15-20 seconds. It's really strange. What is cool about this, though, is the special stages. I was impressed with those. They work very similar to Sonic 3D Blast, or Flicky's Island, sorry, for the Mega Drive and the Sega Saturn, where you had a viewpoint behind Sonic and you're dodging the bombs left and right. So that was pretty cool. But what about price? Now, this is a pricey game. I tried to find some examples on eBay. It's very difficult to find any sold listings. But going by my knowledge and what I know about this game is going to set you back about £250. Yes, that's right. For a little bit of cardboard and a bit of plastic, £250. It's also notable actually because it was at the time when they're just trying, especially in Japan. Sorry, that's what I didn't mention. This is the Japan version. So that's it's again the time when Sega would getting towards the end of a life cycle of a console. So the Game Gear was coming to an end, and they changed the branding to Kids Gear. I'm not sure if you can see that on the camera there. So an interesting game. Like, I wouldn't say buy this. I wouldn't recommend it. But if you're a Sonic fan going for all the variants, and good luck with this one. This took me years to find, like years. I was looking for a long time. But we're moving on to our last one now, and this game is this strange one. Sonic and Knuckles on the Mega Drive 32X or the Sega 32X or the Super 32X, depending where you're from. And this is the European version, so the PAL version. And it's a really strange game. It came out in mid-1995. It was the only time we had a Sonic game on 32X, similar to the Sega Saturn. We really struggled. We didn't get a proper Sonic game like we did with all the other Sega systems. But it's an interesting one. Now, anyone that's really interested in the history of this game might want to check out a game called Sonic Crackers, which was a prototype game where they were playing around with some gameplay mechanics, and the ideas that came out of that game when it was being developed at Sega got split into two games, one being Sonic 3D on the Mega Drive and Saturn, the other one being Knuckles Chaostix. Now, this is Knuckles' only game where he's the main star, which really annoys me because he's my absolute favourite Sonic character. So I want Sega, I want some more Knuckles games. But, so I personally don't mind this game because it's Knuckles and it's all fun. It did introduce us to a lot of new characters in the Sonic universe. The Chaostix crew with Charmy B and SBO Chameleon and Vector and Mighty and some other ones that have appeared in Sonic games since. So it was good to have those characters because some of those are quite cool. But the game's about you are working as a team and you're connected by this ring bond where you can throw each other around and you can work together to do moves. Anyone that's played the Free Vikings game will know what I'm talking about, where you've got to use two characters at once to do multiple things. And that's pretty much what happens in Knuckles Chaostix. You run around the level. It's a bit like Sonic in that you can pick up some speed, you're collecting rings, you're doing all that kind of stuff. But ultimately, it is a bit of a, it's not puzzle. I'm not going to say it's a puzzle game, but it is about using the mechanics of the characters to get to new parts and to get over big obstacles and stuff. It's a little bit gimmicky. It's not the best game ever, but I like the artwork. I've always liked the artwork for this game. My favourite one is the Japanese artwork, but I did like the PAL one as well. But in terms of price, this is a crazy one. I thought when I was starting this video and doing my research, I thought this game was about £200. Looking on eBay sold listings to find a decent one that is in nice condition with the manual and no marks and no tears to the boxes. The 32X boxes in Europe were mostly cardboard, so it's a bit like the Sonic and Knuckles and the Game Gear situation where to find these in good conditions are really hard. But it was going for over £300. I couldn't believe it. I saw one that had sold for like almost 400, but I think that was more or less brand new. But absolutely, prices are just crazy at the minute for the retro world. But that's that one. And you know, we're not even talking about the most expensive Sonic games that you can buy. There's plenty more to show. But it's just interesting how any collectors that I speak to, we all sort of reminisce about, oh, do you remember like 20 years ago when you could just like walk into like a cheap shop and pick up Mega Drive and Master System games and even like SNES games and things for like £1, 50p a pound each, and you could just buy whole stacks of them and you'd be like, oh, I'll leave all those ones because they're not very good. And you just look at games now, and when I was researching this, I was just looking up a few other games that I had, which I thought, how much is that going for now? And I was just absolutely blown away. And it just makes you think that, are we sort of doing it to ourselves? Are we allowing almost like a false economy to appear? Or is it just that so many people now are into collecting retro games that there's less to buy, and so there's not as many available because everybody's trying to snap them up? Is everybody just trying to reminisce and get nostalgic? But whatever's going on at the moment, prices are crazy. There's not really any sign of them going down. I think they will eventually. That's a topic for another time. But I hope you've enjoyed that. I just picked 5 Sonic games out that I thought I just explained about why they're expensive and where they've come from. And let me know what you think. What the expensive games were you surprised at how much they cost these days? I'd really like to know. I'm really sort of getting into this as a topic about why are games costing so much when sometimes they don't need to, especially ones that are quite common. But that's it. Let me know what you think. I've been Retro Faith. Thanks for watching and keep it retro.